Thank you, Chairman Davis. Thank you, Georgia cotton farmers, for the opportunity to serve you. And thank you, Georgia Cotton Commission, for this opportunity to speak to you. Again, I'm Alan Lowman. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Boll Weevil Eradication Foundation. So if you're going to trap boll weevils, you need to understand a little bit about the boll weevil, and Philip gave us a real good introduction. And the thing that I want to point out is that there's a lot of things that look like a boll weevil. Now, the boll weevils are snout and bark beetles. Cucurleos is a broad name for them. There's 220,000 species of these things worldwide and 3,000 species in North America. So before you go trapping them, you got to know a little bit about them. On this picture, the middle group, that is their closest relatives. Now, by close relatives, they are not so close that they can interbreed, but you can tell by looking at them, they all look a lot alike. And down in the lower left-hand corners, circled in yellow, those two are boll weevils. And of course, there's a couple identifying characteristics. I'm not going to go all into that, but number one thing we look for is two spurs on their elbow or that front arm. And that's about 95% guarantee. If you got two spurs there, you got a boll weevil. So there's 15 of us employed with the Boll Weevil Eradication Foundation. We have 13 territories, and of course, a trapper in each of those territories. I have one fellow that does quality control and helps me in the office. He's my backup if I should go down for some reason. And basically, I run the mapping program, the day-to-day operations, the bills, make sure the bills get paid and all that sort of stuff, and supporting these guys. Because the next slides I'm going to show you are pictures of our actual mapping program. And my inspectors or trappers, I use those terms interchangeably, they have iPads in their truck and they're looking at the same pictures that I'm about to show you. So this is an area around our office, and a couple of things I want to tell you about it so it'll make a little sense to you. But the green fields are cotton fields. The gray fields are fields that were planted in another crop, and the brown fields are fields that weren't planted. Now, the yellow triangles are trap locations, and these trap locations are based on the 2020 production, and that's where we'll start. 2021 is going back to those sites, see if the cotton's there, and making adjustments. From the triangle to the edge of the circle is 1,500 square feet, or 1,500 linear feet. The area under that circle is 162 acres. So we set out with the goal to put one trap to every 162 acres of cotton. And as you can see, we've got some skips and some gaps in the picture. And so I'm interested in, from a management point of view, of having those traps, 3,000 feet apart. I'm okay if they're touching or they're very near touching, but in the upper right side of this screen where the two traps overlap each other, I get a little agitated when I start seeing that, because that's killing my efficiency. But so, being in the office and not being at the edge of that field, I got to understand that when Bruce comes in and puts those traps, he understands he's got to come back 8 times to that location. So he's got to put the trap at a spot he can get to, whether it's wet or dry. He's got to be able to get there. So I don't get terribly excited if they touch a little bit, but I want to be as efficient with our operations as possible. So from my perspective, the most efficient trap is a trap that's placed in the middle of a field. Now, why would I say that? Well, this pheromone that we use to trap the weevils is it's basically a gas, like gas fumes is an analogy that I like to use. I think most folks would understand. So I'm counting on the wind to disperse that pheromone. So if that trap is in the middle of the field, it doesn't matter to me which way the wind blows, it's blowing that pheromone on the cotton. And that's when I'm my most efficient. So there's a lot of ways to get coverage, and then the field in the center there that's got a colored outline around it, that field is half cotton and half peanuts, and we got the trap at the pivot point. That's about that's partially perfect from my perspective. A little bit further west, we've got a trap between two fields. And I've got a little inefficiency there because the boll weevil, its reproductive host is cotton. So if it's in peanuts, it may be resting there, but it's not going to stay there. It's going to cotton because it's got two jobs in life, eat and breed. So it's going to cotton. So I don't like to see my traps over pine trees and that sort of thing. I want it on cotton because I want those traps are sentinels 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 180 days a year they're working, and I want to get everything I can out of them. So when you back off and look at the bigger picture, we're basically laying down a blanket of traps. And in some areas, kind of like in the center there, we've got some 4 traps that overlap each other. I'm losing some efficiency there. And then down south of there, we got some traps on some big pivots that are kind of far apart. Well, I'm losing a little bit of efficiency there because I got some cotton that don't necessarily have a trap within 1,500 feet of it. But you got to understand, the USDA, the minimum requirements for a cotton producing area situated like Georgia, as far away as we are from Brownsville, Texas, where there's active populations of the weevils, the USDA recommends a minimum of 1 trap to 640 acres. We set out to trap 1 trap to 162 acres. So we're roughly 4 times what the USDA recommends. When you look at the whole state, the small fields, the fields back in the woods that are by themselves, the 5, 10, 20 acre fields, we end up trapping 1 trap to 93.5 acres. And I don't want to be penny wise and dollar foolish, but we're given a lot of value for our trapping beyond what we need to. And I've got a good team of folks, and we're looking at our costs, trying to minimize our costs, operate within that 75-cent assessment, have funds available to send to the Boll Weevil Protection Fund, and still give us all a measure of assurance that if there's a weevil sneaks in here, we're going to find it and let it know right quick it's not welcome. Thank you very much for participating in the Zoom.